Now, for one of the most controversial pieces in art history, we have the fountain, which is this piece up here in the upper left-hand corner. Notice the date, 1917. Our artist is Marcel Duchamp, and actually this is a photograph of Marcel Duchamp. Marcel Duchamp often would dress in what they called drag, or in women's clothing. A lot of it was for shock value, but some of it could have been also that he was into cross-dressing. He never necessarily discussed it, but he definitely had an alter ego that was female. He's not necessarily like completely a Dada artist, but his works are considered the founding of Dada. So he's like the father of Dada. And Dada, D-A-D-A, is like really a nonsense word. They meant it to mean like hobby horse. Do you guys, I'm thinking you know what a hobby horse is. It's a little play horse that toddlers use to rock, right? So it's kind of an interesting term, and it's directed toward a movement that really did begin in a couple cities, Zurich in Switzerland, Cologne in France, and Berlin in, of course, Germany, Paris, France, and New York City. And it really lasted between 1916 and 1917. I'm sorry, to 1925. And if you notice that that time period, 1916, is in the middle of World War I and extends to the middle of the 20s. And a lot of the things that come out of Dada is really a reaction to World War I. And I know that seems odd that, okay, there's a urinal, they call the fountain, is a reaction to World War I. Well, it's really part of that post-war disillusionment that hopefully your history teachers have talked about at the end of World War I, where they're really trying to upend the social order, and like the people don't have it in them to follow what was in the past because they believe that they were lied to. And so they really are creating this new definition or new style, not just in literature like F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ernest Hemingway, poets like E. E. Cummings, and then with art in the art world, we get Marcel Duchamp and others. So let's see. Duchamp definitely created the most complex and challenging works, and that's not necessarily artistically, but in regards to the esoteric knowledge you need to understand it. So he was from Europe. He went to New York in 1915 to escape World War I. And then one of the things that is clearly things that he intended to show is that he's interested in play, kind of like this playful use of objects. And one of the things that he believed in was that art isn't what art critics say it is. Art is what the artist says it is. And that is something that is, I know for us that seems normal, but for him it's like, it was considered a revolutionary thing. So he was pretty famous, and he is, at the time, he used what we call ready-made. He takes something that already exists, something that's industrially made, and then changes it around and makes it something completely different. For example, we've got the bicycle wheel in 1912. You basically have a bicycle wheel attached to a stool, or you've got a hanging shovel. Like, these are already created by either a machine or a person in a factory or something like that, and then he takes it apart and puts it back together. And so that's what it means by ready-made. Just like this fountain was something that he went to a hardware store, he bought it, he changed the way that it was supposed to stand, and he wrote R. Mutt 1917, and now he's considered the artist of it. not necessarily the artisan. So the way he justified that was that big artists like Rubens, Rodin, even Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, well, maybe not Leonardo da Vinci, but Michelangelo, they had, they had a bunch of, let's see, what's the word? People that worked in their studio with them. And then the famous artists like Rubens and Rodin, they put the finishing touches on the piece, but a lot of the work was done by other people, but the credit goes to the artist who finished it off. And that's his commentary, is that, well, this is my art because I took something that wasn't art and transformed it into being something that I feel is artistic. So he places ready-made objects in different positions and he'll put two objects together that don't go together. And really he wants us to just look at them differently in a way that we wouldn't have before. So he wants us to think about what art is in a society, especially at this time, but even today, where everything is mass produced. So his argument is art about someone's technical skill, or is art embedded in the conceptual? Is art just, is it just based on philosophy and theory, or is it based on the artist's skill? And I think that's what is so controversial about this, is that for many of us, that's also kind of the same argument they made with photography. So Duchamp, the way he gets really famous, or why we know this piece so much, is that he purchased a urinal, which is for ladies in the room who don't have brothers or have never been in a men's restroom. This is what men use in the restroom. And so he went to the plumbing supplier, bought it, and turned it on its side so it's no longer functional as a urinal. He signs it R. Mutt and then puts the year 1917. And that's supposed to be kind of a play on the manufacturer's name, which was J.L. Mott. And so he was a member of the exhibition of American Society of Independent Artists. He was one of the members of that committee. And when this is the first time they were going to have an American exhibition, because Europe's totally broken out into war and no artist is producing as much as they should be. So America and New York especially is going to, okay, we're going to produce, have this show. It's called the First Annual Forum Exhibition of American Arts. And so the artists, because it was supposed to be this idea that anyone could submit art as long as they paid the $6 entry fee, then it would be displayed. And Duchamp kind of called them out on that. Not to their faces, but he did it by creating the fountain, because he knew that they didn't actually think of it as being ready-mades. He thought, it would be landscapes, sculpture, portraits, things of the traditional art forms that we've talked about. And so when he submitted this under a pseudonym, the piece was rejected, thus proving his point that they're not going to show everybody's work. And by him rejecting it, they're saying it's not art. And that is where, Duchamp just went, he went very specific on it, saying that of course it's art, because I took something that already existed and I changed it, made it mine, and art is in my, it's in my head, and you can like it, you can dislike it, but it's still art. So Duchamp then, he published his commentary on the contemporary process of making art and the exhibition. And so after that, he resigned from that Society of Independent Artists in horror about the fact that, about this R. Mutt case, so to speak. And he is going to write that unsigned editorial that you see below about the scandal from the case. He wrote, "The only work of art America has given are plumbing and bridges. So whether Mr. Mutt with his own hands made the fountain or not has no importance. He chose it. He took an ordinary thing in life, placed it so its useful significance disappeared, and then under a new title and a new point of view, he created a new thought for that object." So Duchamp was making a point that it is the artist who decides what art is, not the people who criticize it. He is saying art is completely conceptual. And then he's also initiating a long-standing conversation from this point on. This is the most controversial art piece that art historians have like talked about. But he basically is going to lead to our modern art and our contemporary artists, where they're saying that this is art because I say it is. It's not art because you say it is. And so it's going to be one of the most pivotal pieces for contemporary art today. It's how much of the traditional conventions be stripped away for an object to still remain what is quote unquote art. Now, there's replicas of these. I've seen one at LACMA. I've seen one, which is the LA County Museum of Art. I've seen a gold one at the Broad, which was a different artist who made that one, but it was an homage to Duchamp. I've seen one at MoMA. I've seen one at the Pompidou, which is the Modern Art Museum in Paris. So there's multiples of these. The original, actually, I'm not even sure where the original is, but there's multiple copies of them. But really the most important thing is the conversation that comes out because of this piece. How on earth can a urinal be art? And I hope you can now explain it. It's the concept of the artist choosing something, altering it, changing it, and making it into a conversation piece. And modern contemporary artists like Banksy, like Basquiat, obviously Warhol, they're all going to do the same type of thing, these ready-made type art, and alter it significantly or even insignificantly and say, now this is art. So he's really important because of that. By the way, in 2006, a man in Paris attacked one of the versions and said this urinal was an embarrassment, and he acted in the name of art. So even up until 2006, almost 100 years after it was first created, it's still causing controversy. Marcel Duchamp is a super interesting artist, mostly because of his ideas of and conceptions of art. So if you like this type of stuff, then I would encourage you to look up more of Marcel Duchamp's art.